Literacy is a bridge from misery to hope. It is a tool for daily life in modern society. It is the road to human progress and means through which every man, woman, and child can realize his or her full potential. Functional literacy is defined as the ability to use reading, writing, and numeracy skills for the effective functioning and development of the individual and society. An average literate person should be able to read and write independently, but a large portion of the population is not able to do so. A major issue in many communities worldwide has been accessing affordable and effective reading materials. Without materials with which to learn to read, communities cannot address the problem of supporting literacy. It doesn't have to be this way. World Vision is working with communities to address this problem by empowering them to develop their own reading and learning materials. Our journey starts in Nairobi, where a team of World Vision officers, bringing together staff from Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, and the United States, traveled towards the Rift Valley town of Narok. Narok, home to about 40,000 people, predominantly from the Maasai community, lies west of Nairobi city. It sits at an altitude of 5,997 feet and is known for being the home of the rich Masai Mara Wildlife Reserve. In Narok, the World Vision team will work with local staff, community volunteers, and the community members themselves to develop localized resources using the SHELLBOOKS process. SHELLBOOKS are simple story-based teaching and learning resources, adapted from relevant and reliable materials that are easy to adapt and localized to a community level.
SHELLBOOKS are wonderful. They have so much potential. They can bring a community together like this to develop a book. It's a software that can be used for so many purposes. At this point, it's being used for this community, but it can also be used for adult literacy. It can be used for primary, it can be used for secondary, and it can be used for early childhood. The process brings a community together and then allows for people of different ages to work together to produce materials in mother tongue. And the beauty of SHELLBOOK is it allows us to do it in mother tongue, which is what we really need for strong literacy.
SHELLBOOKS are created using the SHELLBOOK Maker software and are then edited to reflect local cultural and context by community members with the help of local World Vision staff. They provide a way for children and their families to access important information and also to adapt that information for their own community in a participatory and empowering process that enables truly sustainable transformation. In this way, SHELLBOOKS process achieves 3 goals in a community. First, it is an effective tool for producing an abundance of locally relevant resources to support literacy. Second, the teaching and learning materials also serve as powerful tools for advocacy and for life skills development. Finally, the SHELLBOOKS process is an empowering method of community engagement.
Materials that you can use that will support.
After arriving in Narok, the World Vision team first underwent a detailed training of trainers to learn about SHELLBOOKS and its potential to empower communities to promote literacy and advocacy. They learned about what SHELLBOOKS are, how to use the SHELLBOOK Maker software, and the process of community engagement for creating a SHELLBOOK.
I found the SHELLBOOK very exciting. I'm really very passionate to implement it. I would say it is also very simple to replicate it into our own context.
Having been prepared and now ready and excited to apply the new skills, the team split into 2 groups and set out to different communities. We will follow the team that traveled to a small community in an area called Siaipai. In Siaipai, a local community volunteer mobilized a diverse group of participants. Women and men, elders and youth, parents, teachers, farmers, and many more were asked to join the resource localization workshop. The team in CIP did experience some struggles in community mobilization, such as gender imbalance, starting on time, finding an appropriate location, and mobilizing enough participants. However, the team learned from these problems and took steps to resolve them.
These things that didn't necessarily go well with the community are things that we've learned from and things that we're going to use to do better next time. If everything had gone perfectly, we would be maybe unprepared if something didn't go well when these trainees go back to their own context. So I'm glad that not everything went exactly as I had planned it in the community because it helped as a learning process.
The first session had several aims: to introduce the CIP community to the World Vision team and to the concept of SHELLBOOKS, to present to them the objectives and activities of the workshop, and to familiarize them with the SHELLBOOK resource that they would localize.
We are taking a story from a faraway place. We're going to talk about.
The team introduced them to a story from a past SHELLBOOK. The community members were encouraged to listen to the story and to think about how its themes and lessons could relate to their own community. Once the community had heard the story, the challenge was to work with them to adapt it to their own culture and context.
Again, come up with, bring it to
The first step was identifying the themes from the story and how they were relevant and practical to the community in CIP.
It will force you first to come and sell the few cows you have, which has really happened.
Poverty, the importance of education, child labor, community responsibility, and environmental protection were themes that were mentioned as especially important to the community. These themes formed building blocks of the story to be created and then written. The community members then began the process of developing an outline of their story. Through rigorous brainstorming and discussions of community life, a story gradually began to take shape. Characters were identified and named using common Maasai names. At the end of the day, a summary of the story was read aloud, to the acclamation of all the participants who left with excitement over what they had accomplished and a sense of anticipation. In preparation for their return to CIP, the World Vision team typed out the story and filled in narrative content to give the story direction. Day 2 started with reading the draft story and the community members providing suggestions for improvement and change. Through this important process, the community took active ownership of the narrative to ensure that it really fit into their local context. Once the community members were satisfied with the narrative, they moved on to take pictures to provide illustrations for the book.
It's not only you have only the text, but it's also important having those illustrations or those pictures. It helps especially this community, especially those who don't read. Okay, even if they are not reading the text, they understand from the picture what kind of message is in that story. So this is very relevant.
Pictures speak 1,000 words. Pictures complete a book by making it more effective to read and understand. They organized the locations for the different scenes and chose different actors to represent the characters from the story. Photos were taken to portray the various scenes. This was an exciting process for the community members, and one even likened it to being on a film set. After an active day, the community members returned home only to bring even more people on the final day of the workshop to excitedly receive copies of the books they had developed. Upon the team's return to CIP, the community members were invited to share any last-minute revision. They noticed some issues in the Maasai translation, as their dialect was slightly different. 3 representatives were chosen to go over and edit the translation and then present it to the community. The community was really driven to make this resource their own. Lively discussions began about audiences for this book and future titles that could be developed by the community. They broke into 2 groups to discuss themes that they could include in future stories. They named a point person who would organize meetings of motivated community members to develop the next stories. They elected 2 librarians to collect and share the books they would create. They even set a timetable for resource production, aiming to create at least 1 book every quarter. With support from World Vision for using the SHELLBOOK Maker software and printing the books, the community of CIPA felt confident they would work themselves to promote literacy and advocacy in their community, and left with a new expectation and motivation. The sense of empowerment was visible and tangible in the excited attitudes of the community members. Truly, SHELLBOOKS is an empowering tool. Its transformative effect on advocacy and literacy has been felt in all the communities where it has been introduced.
We as a community, we have seen that we can also write our own book, we can also educate our people, we can also eradicate poverty through education, through learning, and through reading other books from other people from different countries and different communities.
To me, the SHELLBOOK will be so much useful in Karamoja context because the local community of Karamoja want their children to be taught in things which is within their vicinity. They don't want their children to be taught in abstract things which are not within their locality.
We shall see that we are going ahead. We are going to write another book. We shall write more and more books about the Siabe village. The Siabe. So may God bless you.
I am convinced from the experience I have had in these communities that SHELLBOOK is a very, very good resource material that can help in advocacy, that can help in community engagement, that can help in promoting literacy, as long as the materials are developed to appropriate levels.
World Vision is training SHELLBOOK trainers to teach the SHELLBOOKS process so that it can be implemented in different countries throughout sub-Saharan Africa. World Vision is supporting the creation of an abundance of reading resources that can be shared through a global SHELLBOOKS database to benefit communities worldwide. The book developed in CIPA will be added to this database. But more importantly, another community has been empowered to generate locally relevant literacy resources for the education of its most valuable resource, its children. For everyone, everywhere, literacy is, along with education in general, a basic human right. SHELLBOOKS is one innovation World Vision is promoting for the children of Africa to actualize this right.